I don't know exactly why I turned the recorder on today. It's a Tuesday, or maybe Wednesday. I've stopped keeping track the way I used to. There's a cup of tea on the table next to me that's gone cold, and the light coming through the window is that particular gray that feels like the sky can't quite decide what it wants to do.
My name is Walter Emmett Bryce. I'm 87 years old, and I've been sitting in this chair for about an hour now. Just sitting, not thinking about anything in particular, or maybe thinking about everything and just not having the words for it until right now. I want to talk about something that I don't think I've ever said out loud. Not to my children, not to my doctor, not even to Margaret. And Margaret was the person I said most things to. She's been gone 11 years now. 11 years, and I still reach for the phone sometimes to tell her something. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, Millfield. Most people have never heard of it, and that's fine. It was the kind of place where everybody's father worked somewhere practical, and everybody's mother kept the house, and nobody talked much about how they felt about any of it. That was just the way things were. My father was a man of very few words. Not cold, exactly. He wasn't cruel. He just moved through life like he was carrying something heavy and had decided a long time ago not to mention it. I watched him my whole childhood, and I thought that was just what being a man looked like. I think I spent the next 70 years doing the same thing. I was 23 when I got my first real job, drafting work for a civil engineering firm in Columbus. I was good at it. I could sit at a table for 8, 9 hours and just work. That kind of stillness came naturally to me. Margaret used to say I could tune out a thunderstorm if I had something in front of me to focus on. She wasn't wrong. We got married when I was 26. She was 24. We had a small wedding in her parents' backyard. Her mother cried. My father shook my hand. I remember thinking, standing there in that backyard, that something was supposed to feel different, complete, like a door had closed on one part of life and opened onto another, and I was supposed to feel that shift in some deep, settled way. I kept waiting. I thought maybe it would come after we bought the house, then after our first child was born, then after the promotion, then after we paid off the mortgage. I kept thinking there was a threshold I hadn't crossed yet, some moment where everything accumulated would suddenly make sense, and I would sit back and feel the particular satisfaction of a life that had arrived, somewhere. It never came. And the strange thing is, I didn't panic about that. I just kept moving. I told myself I was tired. I told myself this was normal. I told myself I'd have time to sit with it all later. Later. That word did a lot of work for me over the years. Our son Daniel was born in 1963. Our daughter Ruth came 2 years after. I remember the night Daniel was born. I was in the waiting room, because that's what fathers did then, you waited, and when the nurse came out and told me it was a boy and that Margaret was fine, I felt something enormous move through me. But even then, even in that moment, there was a part of me standing slightly to the side of it, watching, like I was looking at something beautiful through glass. I don't know how to explain that without it sounding like I didn't love my children. I loved them deeply. I want to be clear about that. I loved them in a way that I'm not sure I ever showed them properly, and that is one of the things I think about now when the nights are long. Daniel lives in Portland. He calls on Sundays. Our conversations last about 12 minutes. We talk about the weather and his work and whether I've been eating enough. And then we say goodbye, and I sit with the phone in my hand for a moment before I put it down. I wonder sometimes if he sits with his phone, too. I've never asked him. There's a particular year I keep coming back to. I was 48. Margaret and I had been married 22 years. The children were grown and mostly gone. The house had gotten quiet in that way that happens when children leave, a specific kind of quiet that's different from ordinary silence. I had a good job by then, senior position. I was respected. I worked long hours, not because I had to anymore, but because I didn't quite know what to do with myself when I wasn't working. Margaret had started painting. She'd always wanted to, and now she had the time. She'd set up a corner of the spare room with an easel and these little pots of paint, and she'd spend Saturday afternoons in there with the door half open, and sometimes I'd walk past and look in and see her there, brush in hand, completely absorbed. She looked happy in a way that I remember noticing. I noticed it the way you notice weather. You look up, you register it, you keep walking. One evening that year, she came to the kitchen table and she had this painting she'd done. It wasn't anything in particular, some trees, I think, and light coming through them in a certain way. She put it on the table in front of me and she just looked at me. I told her it was nice. She picked it up and went back upstairs. I've thought about that moment more times than I can count. The way she looked at me before she picked it up. I've spent years trying to read what was in her face, and I still don't have the right word for it. Not hurt, exactly. Something quieter than hurt. Something more patient and more sad. I want to stop here for a moment because I'm not entirely sure where I'm going with all of this. That's not how I usually do things. I'm an orderly person. I like things to have a clear structure. But this doesn't have a clear structure. This is just a life, and lives are not orderly. What I know is that I kept waiting for things to feel finished. Not finished as in over, finished as in complete, like a sentence that finally has its period, like you reach a certain point and look back at everything, and it resolves into something that makes sense. I don't think that happens. I think I understand that now, at 87, sitting in this chair with the cold tea and the gray light, that there is no arriving. There is no moment where the accumulation of everything you've done and felt and chosen suddenly coheres into something that satisfies you. And the waiting, the constant deferring of presence to some future moment when things will feel right, when you'll have time, when you'll finally sit down with the people you love and really talk to them, that waiting has a cost. It has a very specific, very quiet cost.